A single mom rescued a man in the woods. What he said left them in tears. Before we go further, please ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more interesting stories like this one. It started like any other morning. After dropping her kids at school, Samantha tied her worn sneakers and headed for the woods. A single mom in her early 30s, she'd made a habit of walking a narrow trail behind town when life felt too loud. Today was one of those days. She needed quiet, real quiet. Not the kind interrupted by bills or dishes or the constant ache of doing it all alone. The trail greeted her with soft golden light filtering through the trees. Birds sang and the forest floor smelled of earth and moss. Each step helped her exhale a little more. The world beyond the trees began to blur. Then she heard it. A faint sound like a whisper riding the wind. She paused. It came again, not animal, not bird, but unmistakably human. Weak. Desperate. She called out. No response. Something urged her off the trail, through tangled vines and damp leaves. The deeper she went, the more the forest shifted. Peace turned to tension. Branches clawed her sleeves. Mud clung to her shoes. Then she saw it. A hand. Pale. Trembling. Just barely poking from the dirt. She gasped, stumbling forward. Hello? She cried, kneeling down. The hand moved, barely. No time to think, only dig. With frantic fingers, she pulled away soil and leaves, revealing an arm, then a shoulder. A man, half buried, face streaked with blood and dirt, clung to consciousness. Her breath caught. You're going to be okay, she whispered. Though she wasn't sure she believed it, she grabbed her phone. One bar. Her thumb trembled as she dialed. It rang. Then static. Then a voice. 911, what's your emergency? I found a man, he's hurt. He's buried. Alive. I don't know where exactly, I'm in the woods near the old trail behind Pine Grove. Please send someone. The dispatcher asked for landmarks. Samantha rattled off what she could. An old broken fence, a creek, a tree with yellow tape from a forgotten survey. They said help was coming. Stay with him. She dropped the phone, sliding back beside the man. His fingers twitched, slow and weak. She pulled off her hoodie and wrapped it around his torso. It was all she had. His body was ice. I don't know who you are, she murmured, cradling his shoulders, but I'm not leaving you here. His lips moved. A whisper cracked and faint. She leaned in closer. Didn't think anyone would come. The words hit her like a punch. She swallowed hard, blinking fast. I'm here, she said softly. I came. Minutes passed like hours. The forest felt different now, too quiet. Every sound, every rustle of leaves, made her flinch, but she didn't move from his side. She held him like her presence alone might keep him alive. Then came the sound, faint at first, then louder, sirens winding through the trees. Relief surged through her, nearly knocking the wind from her lungs. Lights flickered between branches. A team of paramedics pushed through the brush, equipment in hand, urgency in their stride. He's over here, she shouted, waving an arm. They rushed in, took over, assessed quickly. One cut away what remained of his suit, another wrapped a thermal blanket around him. Questions flew at her. When did she find him? Did he speak? Was he breathing when she arrived? Samantha tried to answer, but the adrenaline was fading. Her voice wavered. Her legs shook. They lifted him onto a stretcher. As they moved toward the path, the man stirred again. His arm reached out, fingers brushing her wrist. His eyes opened briefly, dull, but locked onto hers. You didn't walk past. The words barely left his lips, but she heard them clearly. And for the first time, her composure cracked. She watched as the stretcher disappeared into the trees, red lights casting shadows on the leaves. The forest fell still again. Samantha stood in the clearing, hoodie gone, hands filthy, heart racing. What had started as a peaceful hike had turned into something she couldn't yet name. But one thing was clear, she hadn't walked past. And because of that, he was alive. By the next morning, Samantha's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Local news had already picked up the story. Single mom rescues buried man in forest. Her name and face were everywhere, on TV, in online articles, across social media. Strangers called her a hero. Some wanted interviews. A few even offered money for an exclusive. But Samantha didn't feel heroic. She felt unsettled. She watched the footage of the paramedics wheeling the man away. Every time they showed his face, blurred in some clips, clear in others, her stomach knotted. That haunted look in his eyes was seared into her memory. At work, her manager gave her a soft smile and offered her an early shift to avoid the reporters gathering outside. She took it. At home, she kept things as normal as possible for the kids: dinner, homework, bedtime stories, but she couldn't stop checking the news once they were asleep. Then the man's name surfaced. Michael Barron, a tech entrepreneur. Private, reclusive, worth millions. Disappeared nearly a week ago. Last seen leaving a charity gala. Authorities suspected a kidnapping, maybe foul play. But no ransom note ever came. No demands. Just silence. Until Samantha found him. The story shifted overnight. The headlines were no longer just about her. Now it was tech millionaire found buried alive. And everyone wanted to know why. Police released a statement confirming they were investigating. They believed it was deliberate, intentional burial, possibly drugged. Maybe someone had tried to get rid of him quietly. Theories exploded. A business betrayal, jealous investors, family dispute. The details were vague, the silence from his inner circle louder than any statement. Samantha followed it all quietly. She didn't talk about it. Not with her coworkers, not with her neighbors. But she couldn't look away. The image of him lying in the earth haunted her. Not the dirt or the blood or even the broken suit, but his eyes. There was fear in them, yes, but also something deeper, as if he had already accepted the end. One night, as she sat at the kitchen table long after the kids had gone to bed, her phone rang from an unknown number. She almost ignored it. But something told her to answer. A man's voice came through, calm and quiet. "Miss Cole? This is Samuel, Michael Barron's assistant. He's asked to meet with you, if you're willing." She didn't respond right away. "You don't have to," the assistant added quickly. But he insisted I ask. Her first instinct was to say no. She didn't want more attention. She'd done what anyone with a conscience would have. There was nothing more to it. Except there was. She thought of his words. "You didn't walk past." The way he had looked at her, like she'd pulled him from more than just the dirt. "Where?" she asked softly. The assistant gave her the location, a private room at a recovery center just outside town. No press. No cameras. Just him. Samantha hung up and stared at the wall. She wasn't sure why she agreed. Maybe she needed answers. Maybe closure. Or maybe, deep down, she wanted to see if his eyes still held that same quiet plea. She got up, poured herself a glass of water, and stood at the window watching the streetlights flicker outside. Whatever was waiting at that recovery center, she would face it. Because now it wasn't just a mystery in the woods. It was something that had taken root in her life. And it wasn't going away. The security guard outside the door didn't smile, just nodded and stepped aside. Samantha hesitated for a moment before walking in. The room wasn't what she expected. No flowers, no balloons. Just clean white walls. A single window letting in gray afternoon light, and the rhythmic beeping of a heart monitor. At the center of it all sat Michael Barron. He looked nothing like the man from the headlines. Gone was the billionaire mystique, the sharp suits, the polished image. He wore a plain gray sweater, hospital wristband still looped around his arm. His face was drawn, but his eyes, clear now, watched her with something close to peace. "Samantha," he said, his voice rough but steady. "You came." She nodded, unsure of what to say. The door closed behind her, muffling the outside world. "I've been trying to figure out what to say to you," he continued. "But nothing really fits. Thank you doesn't seem like enough." She sat in the chair beside the bed. The silence between them was strange. Not uncomfortable, just full. "I remember the dirt," he said finally. "The cold. My body giving out. And then your voice cutting through it." Samantha looked at him. He wasn't being dramatic, just honest. "They left me there," he added quietly. "People I trusted. People who stood beside me for years. They wanted control of the company, the accounts, everything. They figured one clean disappearance would do the trick." She said nothing, letting him speak. "I'd accepted it," he admitted. "Lying there, I made peace with it. I thought maybe this is how it ends when you live in a world where loyalty is paid for." He exhaled, a long, heavy breath. "But then I heard someone. You." He paused, swallowing hard. "And I wanted to live again." Samantha looked down at her hands. It felt strange to be the reason someone chose life. "I didn't do anything special," she said. You stopped, he replied, eyes never leaving hers. That's rare. They sat in that space, two people from different worlds, joined by something that defied logic. A woman who worked double shifts to make rent. A man who could buy buildings with a phone call. And yet here they were. Neither with the upper hand. Neither asking for anything. After everything, he said, I don't miss the money. Not the houses or the boardrooms. But I regret not noticing people like you sooner. She blinked fast, holding back the sting behind her eyes. I'm not anyone important. That's where you're wrong, he said, leaning back against the pillows. You reminded me that worth isn't measured in what you own, but in what you're willing to give without being asked. The monitor beeped softly, filling the silence that followed. Samantha stood. I'm glad you're okay, she said simply. Michael looked at her one last time, something unspoken in his gaze. Because of you. She turned to leave and he didn't stop her. No speeches. No promises. Just a quiet nod between two people who understood that sometimes the most powerful moments come without a script. Outside the room, the hallway felt brighter. Samantha stepped into the light, breathing in something new. Not relief. Something more. Samantha first noticed the van. It was parked across the street. Dark windows, antenna sprouting from the roof. First, she thought it was a contractor. Then another car showed up. Then a woman with a camera waited by her mailbox. The story had leaked. Details of her quiet hospital visit with Michael Barron were now headlines. Single mom who saved billionaire reunites with him in secret visit. Her name trended online. Photos of her from years ago resurfaced. Strangers shared opinions like they knew her. By the next morning, two reporters knocked on her door. One offered money for her story. The other just kept the camera rolling as she shut them out. She pulled the curtains and silenced her phone. Her kids noticed. Lily clung closer. James asked why there were people outside. At school, classmates whispered. Teachers offered forced smiles. The internet was worse. Some hailed her as an angel. Others called her a fraud. Claiming the rescue was staged, that she was chasing fame or angling for a payout. They analyzed everything from her clothes to her expression in photos. They picked her apart. She said nothing. Michael sent a private message through his assistant. Security was available if she wanted it. Discreet. Armed if necessary. She declined. I didn't do it for protection or reward, she said. I did what anyone should. But the truth was she was exhausted. Not from the act, but from the world's reaction to it. The attention made the rescue feel like someone else's story now. Then, unexpectedly, everything shifted. At a quiet press event, Michael stepped onto a small stage flanked by a banner that read, The Samantha Cole Initiative. Cameras flashed, reporters scrambled. But his voice was calm. This is not about me, he said. It's about the people we overlook. The ones who stop when others walk by. The ones who give, not because they expect something, but because it's right. He spoke of single parents, of quiet heroes, of decency. Then he unveiled the initiative, an independent foundation offering support to families like Samantha's. Affordable housing, childcare grants, crisis assistance. But he didn't hand her a check. No cars, no spotlight. Instead, he honored her values publicly but respectfully. Samantha watched it all unfold on her old TV, the kids asleep beside her on the couch. She didn't cry, though she thought she might. She didn't call him, though she almost did. She just sat there, holding a chipped mug, letting the silence settle. What he'd given wasn't money. It was dignity. And dignity is harder to fake than headlines. The next morning, the cameras were still outside, but fewer now. Some had already moved on to fresher scandals. Others waited for her to say something. But she didn't open the door. She walked the kids to school, head high, heart steady. The noise would fade. The world would find something else to dissect. But what she'd done, that stayed. Not because it was big. Because it was human. The venue was modest. No marble floors, no gold trim. Just folding chairs, soft lights, and a stage framed by a simple banner that read, Second Chances Initiative. Michael Barron stood at the podium, no longer the pale, broken man pulled from the woods. His frame was stronger now, his posture steady. The tailored suit was understated. The man inside it looked transformed, shaped not by power, but perspective. People expected a speech about innovation or philanthropy. Instead, he told a story. I was buried alive, he began. And I don't just mean in dirt. I was buried in ego, in wealth, in a version of life that forgets how to feel. I had everything except clarity. He paused. The crowd leaned in. When I was left in that forest, I believed no one would come. That people only act when there's something in it for them. I believed the world was cold and I was part of it. A brief silence followed, heavy but calm. Then, I heard a voice, he continued, his eyes scanning the room until they landed on her. And for the first time in years, I wanted to live. Cameras flashed. Pens stopped moving. He gestured gently toward the front row. Samantha Cole didn't know who I was. She didn't ask. She didn't care. She just saw someone in need and acted. Samantha sat beside her children, hands folded tightly in her lap. Her eyes shimmered, not from pride, but from quiet disbelief that her act, unplanned and instinctive, had turned into this. Michael's voice softened. She reminded me of the man I used to be. The man I lost somewhere along the way. Someone who believed in people. The room went still. No applause yet. Just reflection. He didn't list donation amounts or show graphs. Instead, he announced the initiative's mission: to fund transitional housing, emergency childcare, and employment support for single parents and everyday heroes, those overlooked but essential. It wasn't flashy. It was honest. When the event ended, reporters tried to push forward, but the moment had already said what needed saying. Michael stepped down from the stage and walked toward Samantha. No speeches now. Just a shared look. Something settled between them, an understanding rooted in something neither of them had planned to find. They walked out together, her children on either side. Lily's small hand slipped into Samantha's as they reached the steps outside. "Mommy?" Lily asked, tugging gently. "Yes, baby? Did we save a prince?" Samantha smiled, brushing a lock of hair from her daughter's face. "No, sweetheart. Just a man who forgot what kindness feels like." Lily nodded, satisfied, and skipped ahead, her laughter echoing through the courtyard. The press didn't chase. The questions faded. It wasn't a story anymore. It was a memory. Samantha glanced back once at the stage, the lights, the people still seated in silence. Then she turned forward, walking into a new day with the same quiet strength that had changed everything. Because sometimes the world doesn't shift through force or wealth. Sometimes it begins again with a whisper. And someone who chooses to listen. If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you're watching from and drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Samantha's selfless courage? How did Michael's transformation move you? And didn't little Lily just steal your heart? This tale of a single mom, a forgotten billionaire, and a moment of unexpected humanity reminds us that kindness still matters. Would you have done what Samantha did? We'd love to hear your take. Until next time, keep believing in the power of compassion.